English or Telugu? How many people do not understand Telugu? Okay, English please. First of all, my apologies for being late. I did inform the principal, I think 2 or 3 days ago. It was only 2 or 3 days ago, suddenly a very important, unavoidable private function intervened. Normally I'm accused of ignoring family and friends, but this is something I could not avoid. So I said 11:30, but even that I could not make it. So I started my journey from Vijayawada early in the morning at 5:30. The traffic was so bad on the outskirts of the city. I was still late. I could not make it by 11:30. I came here by 12 o'clock. My apologies for that. The thing that occurred to me the moment I came here is railways seem to be very male-centric. Nowadays we see a large number of women in productive activities in the country. They will feel very remarkably well. Mr. Siva Prasad must tell me whether they are discouraging women from joining railways or women do not want to join the railways. Either way, I think we need to do something about it. Because in the larger sense, even as the economy is growing, how fast, how slow is a matter of detail. We are certainly growing. The participation of women in workforce is declining. India is the only country in the world where the women's participation in the workforce is actually on the decline. It is an unusual trend in the 21st century. It's not the right trend. We need more and more people to participate, and I have absolutely no doubt as a father of a girl child, I can tell you that the girls today are better than boys. Women tend to do better, they're more disciplined, they're more committed. I know all the men folk will be very angry with me. But devil in their house is true. And I think the railways, women should not shun. And I think the railways should encourage women to participate. There is a special reason why I agreed to come here. Apart from the fact that we all need to interact with each other, learn from each other, inspire each other, and figure out a sense of direction for the country as citizens. And that is my role in life. I have made my mission in life. But there's another very personal reason. My father was in railways. I'm a child in railways. So my first memories in life, most of my memories in childhood were related to railway stations, trains, railway employees, railway officials. And my brother was in railways. He retired not too long ago, took voluntary retirement. So I'm more than a passing acquaintance with railways as an organization. And obviously I have very fond memories and great love and affection. And I salute you for doing what you are doing. Despite everything, the work railways have been doing consistently is one of the most remarkable tributes of national unity. You provide, things are as bad as they were 20 years ago. Even in government and certification, other matters, digitalization is taking place. A lot of e-services, e-sevas, etc. are coming forward. Things are getting better, but there's a lot more space to improve things. So don't have too much of moral agony. But as citizens, figure out how to change the way things are done so that you don't have this dilemma. You understand? But don't use this as an excuse to participate in collusive corruption. Again, there is a line. If you are in collusion, use the same argument, then it's no longer true. You are part of the problem. Okay? Next. No more questions? We're all hungry. Thanks. Okay, there's one hand raised there and one here. With these two questions, we'll come.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is N.Jaya Prakash from Maharashtra. Sir, can I ask my question?
Please.
सर एक सोशल मीडिया पे क्वेश्चन बहुत शेयर किया जाता है कि रिजर्वेशन टैलेंट को खत्म कर रहा है क्या, इसमें कितनी सच्चाई?
This is not related to our discussion today, but I understand it agitates many people in the country. It's polarizing our society. It's a complex question. Let me try and simplify this. Supposing I ask you all to raise your hands, do you want reservation? You don't want reservation. The hands raised in support of reservation, most of them would be from people who are benefiting from reservation. The hands which are raised in opposition to reservation, most of them would be of the people who are not benefiting from reservation. So we are not looking at what is good for society or what is fair. We are looking at personal interest. This is what is called a zero-sum game issue, where if somebody gains, somebody else loses. There is some jalebi, hot, nice, juicy jalebi. If you eat that, I don't have anything left. If I eat that, you don't have anything left. Therefore, there is a competition between us. There can only be one winner. Naturally, society is polarized. Either you should get it or I should get it. You can never get a sensible response to that. Look deeper. Look much deeper. In a sensible society, we must recognize first, all children born, they have broadly, there are variations among individuals. No two individuals are carried in the same family, but generally speaking, all children born are endowed with a lot of talent and ability by birth. Whether they believe in nature or God, it's up to you. Do you broadly agree? Do you agree that irrespective of the caste or Maharashtra or Telangana or Tamil Nadu or Karnataka, irrespective of religion, children born have innate ability? Yes or no? Has our society given a chance to these children to fulfill their potential? Our education is so horrible, so disgracefully bad, one of the worst in the world. At one level, people like Mr. Sivaprasad are able to go to IIT Kharagpur. At another level, despite the parents sacrificing a great deal, spending disproportionate sums related to their income, 80% kids are getting substandard, useless, inconsequential education. I am not speaking casually. I am speaking with authority. I know what I am speaking. For no fault of theirs. When do reservations come? After you finish school, when you go to college, particularly some prized courses, some other colleges, who cares? There are more seats than applicants. Like engineering in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. I mean, who cares? 40,000 seats every year are vacant. But a few colleges, because you feel that they are more valuable, there is demand. So all reservations about those colleges, those courses, or jobs in government. But they all come after your schooling is finished. You first messed up everything here. Then you are saying equality. Now let me give you another example. Let us say you are on in railways. I don't know if you still have class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4. Let us say relatively junior ranked employee, her child is going to a local municipal or village school. She is actually bright, but the parents don't have good education. They didn't know how to guide her. On her own, without copying, this is important in today's India. If you say you got 95% mark, you must first say, is there copying or not? You have 90% copying there in India. Again, I can say with complete authority. Then the questioning is reasonable. It's not a stupid rote learning based. This girl got 85%. Mr. Sivaprasad's child or my daughter or somebody else's child with all the privileges, advantage of parental education, wealth, excellent schooling, inspiration, motivation, got, let us say, 87%. Tell me honestly, who has more merit? The 85% girl or the 87% boy? So when we argue about reservation, have you ever thought about this real merit? Let's question ourselves. The issue is much more complicated. So what is the answer? The answer is, in my judgment, I believe there is an answer. I am a great believer that almost any problem, because they are not created by human beings, they are not created by God. God's problems only God can solve. Human problems humans can solve. Humans can solve elegantly and fairly and justly and acceptably. 95% people will be able to accept. Maybe 5% people, whatever you say, anyway the answer get lost. After this is over, I am sure there will be 5% person is the last time. That's the nature of human beings, you shouldn't worry about it. Supposing you say the reservations, by once your father is or your mother is an officer in railways, or a doctor, or has significant income, measurable, or education advantage, real, not bogus education, then you can take care of your children. Therefore, your children should not be discriminated. Because the greatest amount of heartburn is when you see a very well-placed district magistrate or an MP or a minister's son or daughter getting an out-of-turn advantage, when they are much more wealthy, they go to the best possible schools, had all the advantages, and your child worked very hard, and she gets 60%, your child gets 80%, 60% Wala in the name of reservation despite the parental advantage is getting something you don't get. Then you feel terrified, right? You remove that first. Is it fair? Fair or not? Yes or no? Yes. The fellow who is denied now, he will say not fair. He will use all arguments. Why would I want to lose advantage from my child? But that man's voice is not important. But the other people in his own community will know their children are the ones who are losing because of him. Because of him. Seat vacated from SC, ST, BC will go to SC, ST, BC. Not to others. Therefore, for the bulk of the people who are actually not getting the benefit of this, the real villain is the one who is taking undue advantage of this system. Second, among the unreserved categories, for this child who is going to municipal school, getting 85%, you can't give reservation any longer. Already we reached that 50% everywhere. Some place you try to cross 50%. Supposing you give a weightage, what happens in the US or Europe or elsewhere? There also there is backwardness, there is poverty. On grounds of color, on grounds of poverty, on grounds of some other reason, there are problems everywhere. In India they are most extreme. But they manage it beautifully. What do? They don't accrue to a reserve. They go into the totality of the situation. They see your score, they see your background, they see your other activities, they make a measurement of your total capacity and your motivation. They ask you to write an essay, and in that essay not merely the beautiful words but your background, your dreams, your aspirations. Sum totally what determines your entry into from Harvard, one of the world's greatest universities, to other places. So you understood how to actually measure. We don't know how to measure. You give weightage to many other factors because they together determine whether a person is worthy or not. Is that fair or not? Yes or no? Supposing you do that, a lot more advanced. Once you do this, supposing you say every year, by now that some people are taken out of reservation more, without causing injustice to anybody else, we reduce reservations by let's say 0.5%, 1% a year. And most important of all these still are palliatives. The most important thing, the nation should, irrespective of reservations issue, this is only incidental, should make it its first priority to guarantee high quality school education to every single child born in this country. I am disgusted. I am ashamed. I am ashamed that the children of my country, no matter how bright they may be, their future in the large measure is determined by the circumstances of their birth, the accident of birth, not by ability, not by their hard work. That is the most sinful thing in the country. It is a sin. I do not know if there is a God or not. My attitude to God is one of mutual non-interference. If God doesn't bother about me, I don't bother about God. But I do believe that there is sin, and the greatest sin is unfulfilled potential. A child is the image of God. If the child, for no sin of hers, is not able to fulfill her potential, develop her intelligence which is God given, because the society is so cruel, so incompetent, so callous that it does not nurture the brain through good quality education, that society is sinful. You address that. I'm not saying you can do it to 100%, you can do it to 80%. Look at China. Every single child in China gets first-rate education up to 8th grade free of cost. First-rate, fantastic, world-class. After 8th grade, they have to pay some reasonable amount. Colleges, they have to pay much more. But at least the basic ability, basic talent is flowering. Once that comes, you can create mechanisms. Once you're bright, you don't have money, you cannot mechanisms. Without money, how do you get it? But first is, where are the foundations? We are one of the worst in the world in education. I don't know if you're aware. I'm not saying this casually. I'm not saying this flippantly. 2-3 years ago when I was at Harvard, in an India conference, a union minister, my good friend, was sitting next to me. I was a keynote speaker. And I pointed out, he was, because it was defense of his government is in power and all that. But it's the truth. When a survey was done, there's a global survey called PISA. Have you heard of PISA? PISA is a global survey for educational outcomes, program for international students' assessments. The OECD countries, the rich countries started for themselves. They started extending it to other countries. India participated in that. At the age of 15, roughly at the 10th grade level, they measure educational outcomes. Only thing is they guarantee that there's no copying. They ensure there is not rote learning. They actually make sure that you think. You understand the concepts and apply the concepts. India participated. 2 states of India, allegedly the best states of India participated. You know what our ranking was? Out of 74 countries and entities that participated, India stood, you know where? Second from bottom.
73.
Thank God a country called Kyrgyzstan was included in the survey. Why thank God? They were the bottom. Otherwise we would have had a great distinction. What was India's response? What should be the response if you are a parent, your child is not doing, what should be your response? What should be your response? Your child is not doing well. It's known, it's proven. What will you do? You will say, how do I make sure that my child gets the best opportunity? Right? You do our absolute best. Do I get a better tutor? Do I teach differently? Do I give more time? I know of people who gave up their jobs, very well paying, very high paying jobs to take care of the children. We do whatever it takes. Similarly, what should the government do? They should do whatever it takes. What is wrong? How are we not able to impart education? How can we say it right? It's not that we are not spending money. Indian government on an average is spending 60 to 80,000 rupees per year per child at school. Most of you don't know. And what was the actual government's response? You know what? You said, henceforth India shall not participate in PISA surveys. When I said this, the minister said, but my government did not take the decision. I said, has the government rejoined PISA? No. So what are you saying? Of course, then big applause from the Harvard audience. These are very young students, some of the brightest students. And now, the government decided from 2021 they joined, but what did they say? Only the Kendriya Vidyalayas and Navodaya Vidyalaya students will participate. At least better that we joined, but give only the 5% the best, where you're confident, you're lying to yourself. One step better than at least not joining. This is not the way a civilized country would respond. This is not the way a country that really loves its children, that country that believes in the equality of human beings behaves. That is at the heart of the problem. So the question is simple. It seems very easy, but it's complicated. But there are simple answers. The 3 broad points I made. You do it today, I guarantee you the problem of reservations will be gone forever. It won't go by yes or no to reservation. It won't go by a caste wall in the country. Last questions.
We have a long civilization. We have to mourn and fix in our society. Global corruption process relates. We are somewhere in 78 or 79, and it's more or less for last 2 years the same pace. On the other hand, there are countries like Australia, New Zealand, which have basically filtered the convicts from England and Russia, which are the top track. So one of the leaders said, is about the building institutions and changing the laws. Whereas we are electing the people who are there and who are basically making the laws. And obviously they are going to change the laws. And how to build institutions and change.
It's a chicken and egg situation. The question is, the people who have to bring about the fundamental change, if their incentives themselves are wrongly aligned, when they acquire power itself is by wrong means, their perpetuation of power will be by wrong means, why should they change it and how do you make them change it? If it's simple, then you and I would not have to go through this pain and this hardship and decades of struggle. Nurturing a democracy, making it better is incredibly hard. Incredibly hard. A reformer, as Mahatma Gandhi said, must have infinite patience. Infinite patience. There are two broad answers. Answer one is, not everything requires a dramatic global national change. Like your railway reservations, like your telephones privatization. Circumstances force because people are angry that there is shortage, there is corruption. And therefore competition, choice, economic liberalization, many other things happen, right? The forces of economy, technology, and the global communication, exposure of the pressure, and individual officials, inspired officials, enlightened officials like you, like Mr. Prasad, like Mr. Rathod, like Mr. ALN and others. We are all doing a bit. Each of us is making some contribution. We are all discovered. We may not be able to change the whole world, everything, everywhere. But in our small little universe, if you really mean business, if you think hard, if you really have an inspiring conduct, if you set an example, if you build institutions and innovate, we can bring about change. So keep at it. It may be in a small office, a train, or in a railway zone, or in a whole sector, or in a whole organization, or whatever. Keep at it, keep at it, keep at it. Never lose hope. Always be innovative, open to new ideas, new methods, what others have done, why others are succeeding, some others why they're failing, what constant. The second part is, politicians are not evil. They are not demons. It's easy to vilify them and demonize them and say they're all crooked rascals. So it's a fight between devas and rakshasas. It's a common Indian thing. Mythology is about, and politicians are the rakshasas and they're all the devas. It's absurd. I mean, they are not people who are all evil people who have joined politics and panchayat, ward number to prime minister. It's not true. They are like you and I, but they are better people than and you. They are talented, they want to do something for the public, and they are trapped in the vicious cycle. So there are two approaches. One is, can we sit with them, use the power of the contest and bring about changes? Building an argument is important. Because my whole life has been that. People ask me, how am I most successful in India compared to anybody else in bringing about change? What I achieved is not enough. But what I achieved is the most in India so far. Not because of my greatness or anything. Because we figured out, A, B, non-judgmental. You have seen, in all this discussion, is the one word where I abuse somebody and blame somebody. Is the one idea where indirectly I said, they are all guilty and we are all nice people. Have you heard that? Yes or no? Non-judgmental, fair. Mahatma Gandhi said, there is truth in everybody, but nobody has full truth. First respect the truth in him, in her. Then he will respect the truth in you. Then we can come together. If I start by blaming you're bad, you're this, you're that, forgetting the truth in that person, why should we listen to your truth? This judgment, harsh, vindictive, acerbic, acrimonious debate is toxic for the country. That's why I don't watch television. That's why I don't read newspapers. That's why on social media I never ever respond to toxic debate. and never contribute to that. Never. I don't care if 10 million people watch and follow, or 1 million or 1,000. It doesn't matter. Non-judgment and power of the context. Like 2G spectrum, what will happen? Context. If 2G spectrum did not happen, if people of India are not aroused, if politicians did not feel that they needed a way out, if the courts did not understand the context, then use it and skillfully mobilize. What a big change. Power of the context. And finally, build an argument where the politician finds something where public interest is enhanced and his or her own political interest also is protected. Swamikarya, Swakarya. If you say, no, you will be destroyed, but the country will benefit, please do it, he'll throw you out of the road. But he'll not do it. Be sensible. Not only in India. Rarely does a Mahatma Gandhi arise and will say, I will die, but I will let my country survive. But that is not the norm anywhere in the world, trust me. You have to figure out how that person's interests, or party's interests, or government's interests, and the public interest, they both can be influenced. Then big things happen. Sometimes mega things can happen. I was instrumental in getting 3 constitutional amendments in place. I didn't have a single MP. The 91st Amendment, the 97th Amendment, 99th Amendment. I was instrumental in getting 8 or so major laws at the national level by unanimous consent in Parliament through. I was instrumental in significant policy changes from 2G spectrum to National Health Mission to food-based trade, removing the barriers to many things. I had no power, except the power of persuasion, power of logic, power of fairness, power of non-judgmental approach, power of building an argument to bring their self-interest and the nation's good to them. And the contest keeps on arising. When the contest comes, when a crisis comes, crisis is an opportunity. As I said, crisis is a terrible thing to waste. Crisis is an opportunity which can be harnessed, skilled. So don't keep on just waiting and wailing and complaining. I'm a glass half full kind of guy. When people see dark crowds, I see a beautiful silver lining. How do you use it? Keep doing that. Is there a better way? Yes. If God appears and says, I'll change India overnight, fantastic. If some great leader suddenly emerges, who not only has greatness in him or her, but also the people of India are willing to vote that person to power without compromising on a day-to-day basis, and that person actually sets out to change things, and all of us cooperate with him, even if there is a short-term problem, wonderful. But these are dreams. If they happen, wonderful. But there is no guarantee. We live in real world. In a complex country. 1/6 of humanity, with a diversity unmatched in human history. Therefore, push it. And sometimes recognize that patience is required. Let me conclude with this. People often ask me, I've been at Techno for the past 46 years, since roughly 1973, I would say, when I was 17 years old. I have decided, for whatever reason, that my nation's future is my future. All my talent, my ability, my passion, my skills will be devoted to improving the way the country is run. For some reason, it's implanted in my mind. That's reinforced overnight. I can tell you with complete honesty, I have by and large, at least 95 to 99% stuck to it through my life. Obviously, as a young man, I dreamt that this country will change in the next 1 year. Because for students of science and technology background like Mr. Sivaprasad or I, or many of you, logic, evidence, the solution is there, it must happen. What's the big deal? But societies do not move like that. That's what age and experience and a bit of understanding of the real world, painful it is. But it's been painful throughout history. What's the great thing Gandhi said? What's the great thing Gandhi said? Why do you have to struggle for a lifetime? Pay so much of price, and ultimately pay the supreme price of being killed for doing the right thing. That's the nature of society. Human society in the short term doesn't always recognize what is in its best interest. Sometimes it does. Those who witness it are lucky. But humans sometimes take a generation or more. Telephones they understood very quickly, technology. They could see the benefit instantly. People have really embraced it. But not everything could be embraced immediately. There was a time when employees, including perhaps railways also, I don't remember, I think it's bigger, they used to go on strike in this country, including public sector banks, against computerization. Some of the elder people might remember. The trade unions which used to call a strike against computers, all parties used to support them. Today, can you even imagine that happening in the country? The facts are the same today, the logic is the same today as it was then. Why was it possible then? Why is it not possible now? Because a generation or two later, people have become smart, they understood this rascal wants to deny me the computer. Instantly, I'm now being able to use this to communicate, to make decisions, to improve productivity, to know the price, and other things. Who is it to stop this? They'll beat them up. But 40 years ago, they were not beating them up. They were saying, Amachar hai, Amik log hai, you must give them support, they are oppressed, Paramiklara, Egan Kandi, you have nothing but your chains to lose. No, all this genuine but naive beliefs. It took a generation or two to realize this is not going to help you. It's a very simple example. But many other things are far more complex. But the faith that must sustain us, and this is important, is that over generations, while it is sad that there is such a delay, but that's the nature of the human beings. We must and we can do as best as we can to accelerate this process. But ultimately there is there's going to be a delay. You all have raised children. Those who haven't yet, you will raise children. No matter how impatient you are, the child in the womb does require 280 days. No technology can accelerate that process. If you accelerate it, it will be at the cost of the child's future. A society sometimes takes a little longer than it should. You are impatient. As good parents, we want it to happen immediately. All my life I have been impatient. I am still impatient. I am angry. You have seen some of it today. I am genuinely angry, but I channelize my anger constructively and creatively, without bitterness and hatred. But sometimes things take longer than they should. Let's accelerate it, but don't give up. It took me 19 years to get one small thing, and one of the many things I could do in this country. To get a vaccine for MR, measles and rubella, for children MMR, mumps, measles and rubella, to make it universal. The reason why I took it up is measles today globally is a big issue. No vaccine movement, foolishly some of the Western countries, and therefore measles epidemic spreading. In cities like New York, etc., they declared an emergency, health emergency, etc. Rubella is even worse because in India, until 3 years ago, about 2 lakh children, 2 to 2.5 lakh children were born every year with preventable congenital abnormalities because of rubella contracted by the mother during pregnancy. It's preventable because the vaccine is available. The rich and the middle classes, they are getting the vaccine. But the poor, because it's not part of universal immunization program, they were not getting it. And 2.5 lakh children are born every year with preventable physical or mental abnormalities. That's one of many things I took up. It took me 19 years, despite my significant access and influence. I am the author of the National Health Mission. I was on the Prime Minister's Task Force on Health. And I was of the National Advisory Council. I was on the Administrative Reforms Commission. I could walk into a Prime Minister's or Deputy Prime Minister's office with conservatives of all parties. Despite all that, it took me 19 years to get this one wretched vaccine universalized. It happened 3 years ago. Now there are 2 choices. One is, my God, in these 19 years, 40 lakh children are born who are congenitally malformed. How terrible it is. Of course it's terrible, it's bad. That's why I fought. The other is, thank God, at least now, 2.5 lakh children every year are no longer compelled to be born for no fault of theirs with these abnormalities. possible. I've done it 19 years ago. But better late than never. Let's get the damn thing done. So relentless pursuit. With clarity of purpose. Crystal clear. Laser-like precision. With absolute, no confusion in your minds. Evidence, logic, best practices. I hope this interaction today will not depress you. My intention is not to depress you about how bad things are. It's actually to encourage you, to inspire, and to give a sense of optimism that a lot is possible. We are giving optimism. We can make change happen. Particularly because we're at a low level, it's easier to climb up. If you're at this level, to go to the next level is much harder. With a bit of effort, now, I could say just one small thing, I could make a difference of 2.5 lakh children a year. Which doctor in the world can claim that? An American doctor, Bishop, can never claim that in life because they've already achieved that. There's not that much of a problem that they can say, I saved 1,000 lives a year. Big thing. Because when you're at this level, there's also an opportunity. The outcomes can be much bigger. And therefore, your effort is much more worthwhile. However painful it appears, however hard it appears, we cannot afford to give up. And it doesn't require great sacrifice. It only requires fusion of personal. I always tell people, take care of yourself. Have a sense of humor. Don't have bitterness in the heart. Learn to enjoy life. But recognize, this is the very last point I want to make, that your personal interest and the larger public interest, they are not separate. In India, one of the great myths is, this is different. That is, if I take care of this, this is not possible. If I take care of this, this is not possible. Absolute rubbish. No matter how well placed you are, how rich you are, powerful you are, the mosquito that bites the neighborhood urchin comes into your room, your house, and bites you. Because you know what? Mosquitoes are truly socialist. Last night I was in a hotel room in Vijayawada. There were mosquitoes. I don't know. I think actually mosquito bit. Being a doctor, I know some of the potential consequences. Being a doctor, you understand. All my knowledge, all my ability, or access to some things and public esteem, that it prevent mosquito from biting me. Me contracting from malaria to dengue fever to equine encephalitis to Zika virus to chikungunya. No. We need the mosquito to be controlled for my sake because I'm selfish. It is pursuit of my happiness, my family's happiness, my family's happiness and good health. I need that. Taking care of our community, setting some of the things that are wrong, setting them right, is about doing things collectively because I cannot do it individually. There's nothing more to it. I'm sure we'll remember that. I'm sure Indian Railways, which are already doing a phenomenal job, will add a broader perspective apart from your great professionalism and your contribution to the nation's good. A broader perspective in generating this dialogue, this discourse, and some collective action to make bigger change happen faster. I wish you all the very best. Thank you very much.